Yo everyone, Skeptic here. Today, I wanted to talk about a recent Twitter post that the Fangs Twitter account made, which is the AMA on r/games. I thought there would be some interesting questions on the Reddit post, so I decided to turn it into a video, and I wanted to kind of talk about the questions that were going to be asked and the answers that the devs are going to reply to. So without further ado, let's head straight to the post. AMA, we're Hidden Leaf Games, the team behind Fangs, a 4v4 action MOBA. Ask us anything. Hey r/games, we're some of the devs behind Fangs, an upcoming 4v4 action MOBA coming to early access on November 30th. Since 2020, we've been working on creating a new type of round-based MOBA that is more focused on team fighting and objective gameplay. Players have the ability to change their loadouts between rounds and adjust their strategies as both teams try to complete one of two victory conditions. Many of us have previously worked on AAA titles like Dota, League of Legends, Valorant, PUBG, Teamfight Tactics, and more. Our head of game design, Steve Ginsu Feek, was one of the devs that helped popularize the MOBA genre as an early contributor on Dota and League of Legends. However, many of the devs that joined our team early on, we met through game development communities and mostly have non-traditional game developer backgrounds. For example, our level designer was a history teacher, our sound lead was a barista, and our splash artist was a DoorDasher. A bunch of overlooked amazing people just because of the missing experience requirement most studios have. I think that's pretty fucking cool that they did that. We've been building Fangs alongside each community member with alpha-driven development the past couple of years. The feedback and bug reports that have come from our community throughout our close testing periods have been invaluable in bringing Fangs to where it is today. In order to make sure the game becomes the best MOBA for as many folks as possible, we're continuing with our community-focused development process and believe bringing the game to early access will allow us to build and grow the game with our players, which is good, by the way. Having community feedback is always good, but at the same time, you gotta have a good balance of we want this game to be within our vision still and not too community driven, because if it's too community driven, it'll kind of take away the control that the developers have and it'll be harder to make your own decisions. So you gotta have a good balance early on. How is the full version planned to differ from the early access version? Early access will be focused on building the foundation of the game. Everything from heroes, maps, client features, and of course, bug fixing. So please do not expect perfection or a completed game by any means just yet. Of course. We'll support early access with bi-weekly content patches aimed at improving the game and polishing it. The full version of the game, planned for 2023, will have a more complete feature set and have a higher level of polish and stability than early access. We'll also potentially expand to more regions and introduce bigger and larger features for the full release. Okay. So early access, you know, the typical stuff. Alright, so these are the individuals who will be answering some of the questions. David Lee, the CEO, co-founder, and executive producer. Bao Lam, the president, co-founder, and game director. Steve Ginsu Feek, vice president of game design. Tanya Courtney, marketing manager. Akinola Verissimo, marketing associate. Nathan, I'm not gonna pronounce that, I don't want to butcher it. Senior community manager. David, associate UI UX designer. Alec, lead sound designer. Sam, narrative designer. Harriet, Maps Art Lead, David Hall, Visual Effects Lead, Alex Brown, Associate Game Designer, System and Levels. Alright, let's see some of the questions here. Alright, we got the Reddit user SKTT1, Nemo. It feels like MOBAs as a whole fell off a few years back because nothing could really crack League/Dota. How does this game differentiate enough to warrant someone swapping it as their main MOBA? See, that's what I literally said in my previous video, is that if it's gonna go into the MOBA market, you're gonna compete with League of Legends and Dota, the two big giants. Okay, we got the Reddit user FireTiger777. I believe that is David Lee. So David's response is, good point. One of the things we're keen on is to not try to beat League and Dota at their own game. Good call, by the way. There have been a ton of MOBA games made by many great studios that didn't have the staying power of League and Dota. It's pretty clear to us if we try to do something similar, it will be really challenging for us as well. Instead, we're trying to take the MOBA genre in a new direction. Good call. Very good call. Do not even try to compete with those two. We want our games to be fast-paced and right into the action. There's no lanes, no minions, no last hitting, no gold, no level progression, no towers. Oh god. Okay. There's just a lot of removal. So for some people, just having no lanes, no minions, no last hitting, it's gonna strive people away. So while you're presenting it as a benefit, or not necessarily a benefit, but like a perk, I suppose, some people might see that and be like, oh, this game lacks depth because there's no individual lane strategies, there's no minions, no last hitting, no gold or level progression. So because you're cutting out so much stuff from a traditional MOBA, you have to supply that level of depth into other system mechanics. So I'm pretty eager to see what Fangs is going to do to make up for the lack of mechanics, or traditional MOBA mechanics. Imagine playing a game of League, skipping the first 30 minutes and just playing the last 10 to 15 minutes. It's all about important micro and macro decisions. How do you fight as a team? Do you push the aspect as a team? Or send someone to chase after the shard? Or maybe the enemy captain is on their last life. Should you just ignore the other objectives and pile on this one? Every decision could be the one that decides the game. A lot of folks who played our game have actually said it plays more like an arena brawler like Battlerite, but with more macro decisions because of the objectives. And that's another game that I've said in my previous video. So if you guys didn't watch my previous video, I basically made a reaction video to Fangs' latest developer update video. So if you want to check out my reaction, I'll put a link in the description below. But anyways, let us continue. Okay, here we go. We got a reply from Rio. This is a little confusing to me because what you have listed in the first quote is all about macro and micro, and you have stripped all of these away, and barring the new elements you have added, the rest still exist in MOBAs, i.e. how you fight as a team. I feel that these sort of games should be looked in terms of breadth and depth, and stripping away a lot of elements of what makes MOBAs addicting runs the risk of losing player longevity because there are less gameplay elements to keep the gameplay loop interesting. Do you think taking away all of these elements from MOBAs and adding the new elements that you have decided is enough to keep longevity in the game? How did you come to the decision of introducing these gameplay elements together? Lastly, are you working on other game modes, or is your sole focus on this being the main release that players will play? I think that's a very good point that Rio is making here, in that it's basically what I said earlier, is that they keep stripping away elements. And if you don't add anything to make up for it, it's basically just gonna be a really watered down game that'll be solved within a couple years. I think the main appeal of League of Legends and Dota is that the sky's the limit. The items that you build, the mastery or runes that you use, the different lanes, the different champion matchups. There's so much depth within the game that keeps players coming back because the game is truly never solved. And especially with constant patches as well, it keeps the game fresh. So by cutting down a lot of mechanics overall, you run the risk of players solving your game a lot quicker. Alright, so David responds, early and mid-game MOBAs have a ton of macro and micro for sure, but it's also a different paced game, and we've chosen to focus on a different style game that focuses on the pacing of late game MOBAs. A decision made in laning phase probably isn't going to literally cause you to lose, but a decision made in late game phase might. It's definitely a good question. Does changing the way a typical MOBA plays lead to less depth? That's the million-dollar question. I don't think so. I think it's just a different style of game. To keep the game deep, we make sure to have different combinatorics? Guys, I'm looking that up. Is that even a word? Holy hell, that is a word. Combinatorics is the branch of mathematics studying the enumeration, combination, and permutation of sets of elements and the mathematical relations that characterize their properties. I don't know what any of that means, but it probably means that there's a lot of combinations. The how do you say this word? Combinatorics. Okay, combinatorics. We make sure to have different combinatorics of gameplay. Okay, of gameplay elements. You can have different heroes in your team comp. Each hero can have custom builds that change the hero from DPS to tank to healer. Fighting on a map rotation that might benefit certain heroes / builds, team comps. We're actively working on other game modes. We've made several in the past. Let the community play test it and get feedback. We've tried a bunch of game modes like Bomb Defusal, Bomb Defusal, what the fuck? Capture Points, King of the Hill, Gem Grab, Bounties. And so far the favorite has been the payload maps we're launching with. But we'll continue to try out different things and see where the fun lands. I'm very curious about the Bomb Defusal. How the fuck does that work in a MOBA? That sounds like fun though, I'm not gonna lie. That sounds kind of interesting. Like a MOBA, where it's kind of like CSGO in a way, where you have like the counter-terrorists and terrorists, and like you use the fog of war, like the terrorists get time to plant the bomb or something. Dude, that would be so cool. If anyone wants to take my idea, hey, go for it. It's all up for grabs. Here we go. Reddit user Rathy Aro. General question. Should you always expect a pay cut working in game development versus other technology fields? If so, do you think this will always be the way the industry works? Fangs question. What key features distinguish this game from Battlerite? Why will Fangs perform better? Okay, here we go. So David here says, no. Games are a business that need to be competitive when it comes to recruiting, just like any other industry. I think there's a few different common scenarios that might lead to folks being underpaid. Does the company have the cash flow for competitive salaries? Is there a skill level expectation discrepancy? i.e. someone who's trying to break into a new industry or role? Did the person have leverage when negotiating a salary? Okay. Interesting. Alright, the Fangs answer. I love Battlerite. I have over 100 hours in the game. The combat and clarity of the game is superb. I agree. However, after a while, every game in solo queue felt the same. It was fun, but it felt like the same matchups over and over again. The same counter bait, the same combos. Yep, that was me. That's literally me. For Fangs, we wanted to take all the great parts of Battle Right, but give players just a little bit more to think about than just kill the enemy team. Make the game feel really replayable. Yep, I like that. That's why we have a multiple objective victory condition. You can push the payload to win, you can kill the enemy captain 4 times to win, you can collect shards to buff your team to be stronger in fights. We also have the augment system, where you can equip different augments between rounds. Maybe you went the glass cannon route the first round and lost hard. And it's time to change to a tankier build. Between the heroes, the augments, and the maps/objectives, we think we made a game where no two games feel the same, which is good. I like that. Because yeah, that's what I was kind of talking about earlier in Battle Right, is that every game, it might not necessarily feel too samey, but there's not a lot of different objectives that you can think about. The only thing that you really do is, do we have mid control to get the orb and kill the enemy team? That's basically it. There's not a lot of other things that you really need to think about. Okay, we'll do a couple more questions, because if we try to go through this whole Reddit post, there is a lot. There's actually a lot. Yeah, there is a lot of questions here. So I'm gonna leave a link to this Reddit post in the description below, so if any of you guys want to check out the AMA for yourselves, because there's no way in hell I'm gonna cover all of this, and if I do, it's gonna be like a 5-hour video, and you got shit to do, and I got shit to do. So I'm gonna read just a little bit more of some of these, and I'm gonna just skim through interesting questions. Okay, so let's go back up here. Where were we? Around here. Okay. Reddit user Yolki Pokey asked, are you set on the team sizes? As a player of this genre, Battle Right, Bloodline Champions, even in 3v3 cooldown... Oh wait, no. Even in 3v3, cooldown tracking was hard. 4v4 turns the game way more hectic, and while I'm casually playing and learning the skill sets of each character, it is not going to be a problem. But as I get better and get a better understanding of the game, I feel like that could be a problem. Have you guys considered this in any way? Ginsu says, I think trying to track enemy cooldowns in this way shouldn't be one of the more important skills needed. I'd rather players focus on other things like awareness, positioning, objective management, etc. If it's an important skill, I think that points to the game state being too static or predictable. It will always be useful in comms to call out something like Ice Block on cooldown, of course, but we're happy with how 4v4 plays, and specifically the number and complexity of game states that emerges. Interesting, okay. Alright, who is Coach Brown 1? Who is that? Okay, that is Alex Brown, the associate game designer of the system and levels. Okay. So Alex Brown. Okay. Panda on Fire ask, notice action MOBA. Have you ever played Smite and thought about incorporating elements that could make a console release possible? Alex Brown says, I love Smite so much. I've got almost 3,000 hours played since closed beta forever ago. Smite has done a lot of really smart and interesting things to achieve the action MOBA idea. Smite and Fangs both share the everything is a skill shot mindset, which is what I loved about Smite and Battle Right compared to the other big MOBAs. As far as consoles go, we are very interested in console, mobile, and crossplay. At the moment, we are focusing on our PC release and early access right now. Makes sense. When it comes down to controller support, I think Smite has set a good example for doing action MOBA content with a controller. I mostly have played Smite on PC with mouse and keyboard. Are there any specific controller elements that you would be looking for? Let's see. Panda on Fire replies, I guess given the camera, a game like Diablo 3 might serve as more helpful direct controller inspiration, but in MOBA form. They made console controls work pretty well with the camera style that's similar to MOBAs like yours, League, Dota, etc. I just like being on the couch, and Smite is literally the only viable MOBA on consoles. Any other supported MOBA game going console would be cool. Honestly, I'm curious, does Smite have a really good console adaptation? I never played Smite on console, so I wouldn't know, but if it does, hey, I think that's pretty sick. Oh, here we go. Now this is what I'm talking about, the juicy questions. Reddit user A Platypus Enthusiast says, one of the favorite conversation topics in Battlerite communities is why Battlerite died. Given that you have the experience of being able to review the many possible reasons Battlerite wasn't successful, what are your plans to make sure Fangs, quote and unquote, lives? The Lamb09, so let's look up who that is real quick. So I'm gonna highlight this so we don't lose our place. Oh, that's Bao Lam, the president, co-founder, and game director. Bao Lam, the game director. Okay. Bao Lam replies, I think at the core, a few things need to be true for a game like ours to be successful. Number 1, we have to try our best to keep the meta interesting and constantly updated, to keep things fresh. Number 2, inherently should have some type of match-to-match variance, whether that's introduced via maps, heroes, augments, win conditions, etc. No game should feel the same, and you should have the ability to adjust your strategy outside of just outplay them better. Number 3, the core of the game has to be focused on combat and conflict still. We tried a few modes where players were able to avoid combat to achieve victory, and didn't find it to be as fun. I think there are countless videos and theories, and I literally made one myself. And it's not really a theory, but just a regular video on why Battlerite died. But ultimately, the answer is the game did not reach some kind of financial metric to sustain the studio's continued support/development long term. Making games and paying people, it isn't free. Sometimes it's just a business decision. And I get it too, but man, it fucking sucks. Why Battlerite did not reach this financial metric can be numerous reasons, but it's clear. Battlerite's core ideal reached a lot of players. They just couldn't retain those players long term. There's a common misconception that just releasing more heroes, balancing more, putting in a tournament system, etc. will solve the game's retention problem. But historically, we've seen this to not be the case. While bi-weekly patches and releasing heroes does drive new engagement, it just drops off again shortly after, and usually to a lower level unless your core gameplay is fundamentally incredibly sticky, aka people will continue playing it. So essentially, at its core, there was something about the gameplay that did not make it reach mass appeal to the point where it was financially viable for Stunlock Studios. For us, we've learned a lot of lessons from them and other MOBAs. We'll keep adjusting and improving the game to meet our goals stated above. We think chasing the fun is the best way to keep players around and enjoying the game. Holy shit, they get it. They fucking get it. Oh my god. Just reading these replies, They have a clear vision of what they want the game to be, and they understand the failures of Battlerite, and they've taken the good from it, like the good aspects of Battlerite. That's what I was questioning, is that are they chasing the game purely for esports right now when the game isn't even out or polished yet? Or are they focusing on, hey, let's make the game fun first. What do players like? What do they dislike? And let's focus on that first. And they said it right here. We think chasing the fun is the best way to keep players around and enjoying the game, because before it's a esport, or before it's even competitive, at the end of the day, it's a video game. It should be fun. When you play the game, or when you're done with the game, you should be left feeling better, or at least in a better mood. So just having this line, it fills me with some hopium. I'm not even gonna lie. But we will do one more question, and then we're gonna wrap up the video. And we're gonna wrap up the video because my throat, I can tell, it's getting a little bit dry, so... And I'm losing my voice, so we gotta wrap it up pretty quick. Okay, this is not the last question, but I'm curious now. Reddit user Resistive Thought, did you name your company after Naruto? What is this video? Okay. I did say I was gonna do one more question, but I do want to cover this as well. Reddit user Neon White asks, hey there, or says, hey there, I'm a longtime MOBA player and love showcasing my mastery and time commitment through in-game methods. Do you have any plans to have cosmetics or emotes that unlock or upgrade based on your commitment to mastering heroes or playstyles? Yes, I love showing off shit. I agree with this person. The marketing manager for Hidden Leaf Games says, okay, no, I'm gonna be polite. Okay. Tanny ERZ, let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay. Tanya says, hey there, we totally believe in hero mastery being one of the pinnacles of the genre, and we definitely want to reward our community and players with ways of showing that off. At the moment, we are not quite sure what that looks like, as we are still working out how every item can be obtained, but as we will be releasing into early access, we are working alongside our community to understand what is truly the most important things, or the most sought after flexes. So short answer is yes, for sure. But the longer one is that we just don't have it ironed out yet. But it will be something we implement into the game as we go based on community feedback. Okay, here we go. This is the last question, at least for the video. Reddit user Pichu Pak asks, what are your thoughts on performance? Do you think that part is no longer a priority, or are you trying to optimize the game while in early access? I'm talking about specs and requirements. Can you estimate a number of heroes where you would feel comfortable with? Like, at what point do you feel that the introduction of new heroes should have a slower pace? Another good question. I love MOBA games, and I'm looking to play this one a lot. Battlerite plus LoL? That's something I can't miss. I believe this is David. My memory is so bad. David says, or replies, performance is an ongoing priority in development. It's so important that there's almost always somebody working on it. The tricky part is that getting good performance is a long and meticulous process. It's not as easy as, oh, just do XYZ, because if it was that easy, we would have made it that way from the beginning. True. Instead, it's more like, oh, we have to completely refactor the way we do this, which means that not only is it a big project, but the impact it has means that it probably breaks some other things because we were on spaghetti code. So we have to spend a lot of time bug fixing performance work and QAing it. I think that's quality assurance, right? To make sure nothing buggy gets out to players. Right now, we're targeting our min spec to be an i5 4430 GTX 960. Okay, at least I have this one. But we want to eventually be better than that. It's really important to us that our game is literally playable by anyone in the world. Hey, I like that. I love optimized games. I don't want to boot up the game and it takes like a whole 10 minutes to load, or it loads super good on like at the main menu, and then in game it plays like at 30 frames per second. As for heroes, we're happy with 14, the number we're launching with, because it allows for a good starting point for different team matchups. We are aggressively adding more heroes after we launch, oh boy, until we get to a point where we can have good pick/ban draft mode games, which we think to be around 24 to 30. Okay, that's a good thing to hear, because one of my fears in a MOBA is that they never stop releasing heroes. Just boom, 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 just one after the other. And every time, the scope of the character gets more and more dangerous. It's like, oh, Blitzcrank, he grabs you. And then Yasuo, Wind Wall, that it just blocks all projectiles and it's not even an ultimate. And then we got Aphelios and Action. And I'm like, what's going on? Why is there so much crap? Why is it a paragraph? Like, why are some of the skills a whole essay? Like, what the heck is this? What even are these characters anymore? That they're just taking ideas from other characters and just mashing it into one, making the other characters obsolete at this point. It's just, we have characters like Blitzcrank and fucking Alistar in the game. Like, where did we go wrong? What happened in League? Is basically the point that I'm trying to get at, is that I don't want Fangs to turn into League 2.0 or any MOBA where it's just like, we're gonna keep making new characters and they're just gonna get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, making the older characters more obsolete. And not only that, but the more characters that they add, the more matchups that you have to learn, like, and more team compositions. Like, it just gets to a point where it's too much. It's like busy work instead of like, it turns into busy work rather than a fun experience of learning the matchups. Like, it just becomes too tedious. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. There were a lot of good questions being asked in this Reddit post, so I'm actually pretty glad that I took the time out of my day to read some of these, because honestly, I had no expectations for this AMA. I was just kind of like, whatever. It's just gonna be a fun video idea, but in the end, I actually feel pretty satisfied with their answers, and I feel a lot more, let's just say I feel reassured knowing that the Fangs development team has a clear vision of what they want, and they're willing to listen to community feedback, and they're very open and transparent about what they want Fangs to be and what is possible and what isn't possible at the given time. But yeah, I'm gonna go to sleep. It's like 4 a.m. right now. I'm fucking tired, so yeah. Thank you everyone so much for watching the video. If you got this far, I hope everyone here has a great day, afternoon, evening, wherever you're at. And until next time. Bye.